the contradictory side to dressage is most of us only watch those, the very top riders and the top combinations. We only ever really see them in the test. And of course, in the test, the rider's trying to look perfect. But that is not what created the picture.
From performanceriders.com, this is the Parbery Podcast. I'm Nat Foxon, and each episode I challenge World Equestrian Games top 10 dressage rider Brett Parbery to explain and discuss what I call a Parberyism. That's a pearl of wisdom I've written down over the years of working together in our Performance Riders programs. Brett doesn't know what today's Parberyism is. Let's get into it. Okay, Brett, I have a new Parberyism for you today. You ready to get started?
Ready to go.
Today's Parberyism is, it doesn't have to be perfect today. It doesn't have to be perfect today.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, what do you think about this one? First thing that springs to mind?
Oh, look, I think we all fall into this trap that we feel like it has to be perfect, so we end up limiting ourselves, I think, and a bit crippled by the thought of perfection rather than the process of creating it. So, then there's a couple of things there as far as you're then scared to take risks because you don't want it to not feel perfect. And also from a riding perspective, we end up tightening up and holding things together to think that it has to be perfect now rather than riding with allowing the mistakes to happen so that you can then have more of an idea of what needs fixing, and then it eventually gets closer to perfect. I don't think we ever get to perfect, but I think we get close to sort of excellence or mastery is probably a better way to describe it. But I think we all get caught of this, especially dressage riders. I think we're guilty of this more than anyone because our sport is, you're trying to get things foot perfect. So therefore we feel like the more we train that at home, the closer we're going to get, but it can work in the opposite direction. The thing with dressage is it does attract a certain type of person, and we are all a little bit, we've got issues when it comes to untidiness and things not feeling great. So, it does attract a certain type of person. So if we can identify that, all right, this is who we are, we're a bit this way inclined, and I must say I'm one of the worst. So I'm saying this almost talking to myself, but this is who we are. And now holding this horse together or being scared to make a mistake is certainly not going to show the horse what we know is the process of learning. And the process of learning is making mistakes, being allowed to let the horse make mistakes, identifying ourselves how the mistakes happened and what part of our system needs to be improved to show the horse better and get a more thorough understanding from the horse, and also get the horse to understand the rules, like the rules of the system. So we know that will train the horse better, yet we're too scared to let it happen because we are clinging on to this perfectionist mindset, and it only horses just don't even think like that. They don't think about foot perfect. They don't think about not making mistakes. I mean, they are relying on pressure and release, and they're relying on consistency, and they're relying on aids. So, and as we've established over many conversations, that what will get the horse, will train the horse is pressure and release, and what will get the horse to want to do it again is release at the right time or removal of pressure at the right time, and what will get the horse to do it to the maximum of their athletic ability is a rider who's not holding them together, a rider who's supple and balanced and making the corrections and leaving the horse alone, disappearing, as we've discussed before. So, being a perfectionist does not put you in the mindset of going through that process. So that's where the contradiction happens. And I've train a lot myself, trying to get better at this, but also notice this in some of the better trainers around the world, and they are all about the mistake-making process. I mean, the contradictory side to dressage is most of us only watch those, the very top riders and the top combinations. We only ever really see them in the test.
Yeah.
And of course, in the test, the rider's trying to look perfect. But that is not what created the picture. The picture was created through mistakes and looseness and finding out, and system, and finding out what's the horse able to do by itself and where are the flaws in my system. That's what created the picture. And the perfectionist side comes out right in the minutes or that they're doing the test, or when they're just working on elements of the test in the training. That's when you can sort of say, okay, can I now present the picture that is as close to what is perceived as being the perfect picture? Can I switch this on now? And you check that, and then once you've checked it, then you go back to your other way, your mistake making and all the rest.
You mentioned in the beginning, I jotted it down, that we can be a bit crippled by perfection. I love that. And it also reminds me of probably another Parberyism, really. I shouldn't give this one away, but it's the Parberyism is that a well-timed reward can halve your training time. And I think if we're sort of caught up in this perfectionism, and a bit frustrated and really in a rush to make it perfect today, we're going to be missing those opportunities to find reward and, like you mentioned there, release. We're going to actually be missing training opportunities, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's all about reward and release and the timing of aids. This whole process of engaging with your horse and training them through the sport of dressage is all about that timing. So like you say, if you're trying to look perfect, hold things together, make sure you don't make mistakes, you're giving your horse no knowledge. You're really just holding them in shape. And after a while, they'll just start looking for the easiest way possible to exist in this relationship, and they'll just start leaning all over those aids. And so the perfectionist side to us, when it takes over, when it becomes the loudest voice in our head, which, we're all riding around with voices in our head, of course, when it becomes the loudest voice in our head, it just stops you. It stops you testing, letting things happen, training the system, making mistakes. But then there's the other side too, which is just riding around the whole time making mistakes and not having a structure. So, if we are looking at what can we really focus on with our perfectionist nature, with this nature of not wanting to make mistakes, well, pretty much what we can turn that attention to is the system and righto, what does in front of the leg feel like on my horse? Can I stop riding and my horse keeps going? Can I sit up, make a half halt, and feel that the horse is listening to my seat or my body? They're the things that we want to ask the questions. So channel that perfectionist energy into asking lots of questions from the horse, questions that the sport is going to ask you, corners, half halts, preparation, all of the questions that are going to be on the test papers and in training, and what we know we need to do in short sides, and be very good at thinking about those things and processing that information. Turn your energy and attention into being more focused in that area, and then very curious about what the answer is from the horse. Like, have that curiosity to say, okay, if I stop riding right now and sit up and make a half halt, what's going to happen? I'm curious to find out what's going to happen here. And if the horse just stops or makes a downward transition, we go, oh, okay, well, that wasn't the aid. That wasn't my intention. But clearly I've been holding this together with fear that my horse might stop, well, actually, the only way I'm going to train them not to stop at this moment and accept my half halt and keep going by themselves is to let them make the mistake and then correct it and be clear about it. So then that starts to tell you where you need to make the work. And that's where we need to focus our energy and have the curiosity that runs alongside of it to see how much of the system is being understood by the horse. We all do it. We all get in the habit of helping the horses and not wanting to make mistakes and looking good and going past these enormous mirrors that we have at the end of the arena and looking great and all these things, right? Well, that's we need to save that for the judges and then put the bits in the horse, really put a lot of thought into what parts do I need to do to be able to execute a really good test, like a test that, has a way of going in my horse that is, to the maximum of my horse's potential, and then an accuracy and a knowledge that I can do these movements in the correct form and on the markers, exactly on the markers, point to point. And you'll find that holding them together and being scared to make mistakes is not what's going to produce that. It's going to be the horse learning the aids and the rules.
Just a quick message from us. If any of the ideas discussed today resonate with you and you'd love to dive deeper, head over to performanceriders.com. There's a bunch of free content for you, and there's loads of opportunities as well to work with us by enrolling in one of our training or mentoring programs. performanceriders.com. So the Parberyism we're discussing today is it doesn't have to be perfect today. So we're talking a little bit about those perfectionist tendencies that a lot of us have, and also I guess that rush to make it the finished product, right away. Brett, can you talk a little bit about the benefits of tiny incremental progress every day? And, sometimes in the programs that you teach in with us in Dressage Breakthrough and in the Gold program, we talk about that 1% improvement every day. Let's talk about that a little bit, because I think sometimes as riders, I guess it's almost like we think the horse has the same goals as us and they want to produce the perfect work as well. And so when we ask, why isn't it happening? But it actually is happening in tiny little increments, right? And sometimes you even say, like, use your imagination. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, look, this also is hard to recognize because little increments sometimes don't feel like you're getting anywhere. And we all fall into the habit of wanting a bit too much a bit too quickly. And that just seems to be the way that, because dressage is it is a sport of development, and we have to keep reminding ourselves of that the reason the levels are there is to develop the horse according to training, the training system or scale, and that is deeply embedded in the levels of dressage, the fact that we stick to the scale. So it is a sport of development, and reminding ourselves that yes, it is. Feeling small incremental improvements is not easy. And sometimes because this is such a long training process, it's not like teaching a young cutting horse how to identify a cow and then all of a sudden you feel them switch onto the cow and you're like, wow, okay, well, he's getting it. This takes quite a while. And there are often times when you'll feel like you're going backwards. And probably there's another podcast in itself is, being in that moment when you feel like things are going backwards and actually how you reflect on that. And because that's the dangerous time. That's when you're most likely to go on a tangent. It's when you're most likely to lose confidence, most likely to lose interest, all those things.
Or you start calling every coach in the States.
That's right. And you start hitting walls. We all hit walls. Everyone does. And you feel like, I've been going on this path of small incremental improvements and I don't really feel like I've got anywhere, and now I feel like it's all going backwards. Well, the reality is, we need to maybe create a video diary of a horse and try to just keep some sort of something to be able to reflect back on, that you can go, oh, you know what, I have actually made some improvement in the last 6 months, because it is hard to feel. But we are in a sport of development. If you keep going with consistency and keep reviewing things regularly, you will keep improving. Like you can't not. If you're investing the energy into the right areas, into the right philosophy, and into the right ideas and mentorship, or if you've got the right people around you, you won't be going backwards. You might not feel like you're going forwards, but I guarantee it you are, because it's the little things are often hard to feel.
Yeah.
I think where we fall in traps, certainly I can speak for myself here, where I've fallen in traps in the past is when I've asked for something, or when I've looked for something too big as far as an incremental improvement, and that tends to then the horse goes, no, we're not here, and then all of a sudden you get resistance, and then you start having problems.
What's an example from your riding of when you might try for that or expect the big leap, or perhaps you see other riders doing that? Is there a typical sort of area in the training?
I mean, I tend to fall on this one quite a bit. When you're going from horses from the working paces to collected, then to like the even more collected paces. So it's the introduction of collection. Usually we all want to feel, and when I say we, I'm talking about me, I usually fall in the trap of wanting to feel the collection happen a little too quickly. And then, of course, the horses are going to not just give that to you without some form of a resistance. So sometimes that it can be a process that I'll find myself wanting a bit too much collection, and then what comes with that is some resistances. So resistances through the back, through the pole, through the pace. You do have to push the boundaries. I mean, there's a fine line between not asking enough but then asking too much. Like there's a fine line there. I think probably going down it's always a tough one. I'm just trying to think on the move here, but going down the path of not asking enough will also probably not get you there either. So that's when video is really important. So even today, for example, I was riding around with Mel, my wife, and I said, look, I think I need to get you to video me on this horse, this 5-year-old, because I feel myself going down the same path where I'm trying to ask for a bit too much collection, and he's giving me all the signs that it's too much. So I want to see this from the ground. I want to see this on video. I want to see what's happening when I ask the question. He might be doing everything I'm asking, and I'm just missing the point.
Yeah.
So, I think the introduction of collection can often be one of the places where we get a bit over keen.
And I know in the program, I mentioned before about how you sometimes tell us that we need to use our imaginations, and that's often when it comes to the half-halt aids.
Yeah.
You often say we need to use our imagination in terms of what's going on in the horse's feet when we use those half-halt aids. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's right. So basically that response from your horse can be so small, and they give us a response and we don't feel it, therefore we override it. And that's what I'm saying there a moment ago is the trap that we fall into is that we tend to then not quite feel what the horse does in a small gesture, and then just override that a little bit too much, and then we end up creating problems there that we have to unravel anyway. So, and sometimes at that point, if you just can use your imagination and think, okay, all right, I set up, I made a half hop, I'm pretty sure the horse came up underneath me or come back higher underneath me. Didn't really feel it, but I think so. Just use your imagination and go, okay, well, it happened. That's sometimes better, and you start building that incrementally than overdoing it.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
feeling something that's obvious. So that will sometimes grow more than overdoing it. On the same time, there's a certain phase where you'll accept that, and then there's a phase when you go, well, actually, I would like to feel something a bit more than just the fact that I think I felt it.
Yeah. But I guess it's just allowing us to have that option and almost give the horse a little bit of the benefit of the doubt at the beginning when you're beginning to ask some questions, and just to make sure that we don't miss things that might be subtle.
That's right. And that is the nuts and bolts, is at the beginning when you're teaching it, that's a better process.
Great chat today, Brett. Really loved that. And I think, like you said in the beginning, it's so true that many of us dressage riders have these perfectionist tendencies, and we're in a bit of a rush to have everything great and looking wonderful and perfect, and that we're silent as riders. And of course, it doesn't happen right away. So there's some great reminders in there about, being receptive to small changes and progresses and small responses from the horse, so we can find some moments to disappear and some moments to reward, and to not hinder our progress with our perfectionism. So I really enjoyed that. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Good stuff.